Welcome to another episode of Fourth in Fantasy. We're breaking down the AFC North. Stay tuned. And we are back at it again. Good evening, good morning, good day. Just a good day. I don't know how about you. I like to start my days off swell, dandy, and spectacular. Rocco, how you feeling, my brother?
Oh man, I feel fantastic. Coming off of a live marathon with our guy Chev, man, that was pretty awesome. But it's good to be back home on our own podcast, only because I know where to put my head at, and I'm not halfway off the screen before I realize I'm off the screen. Let's
Yeah,
get
that
it.
was actually fun times with our boys. If you
Oh
did
yeah.
miss that, I would. The way the format it was, and it kind of felt like it was a long show. And when I say long show, it's like we had many commercials in between. So like how he started it off, and then he transitioned, and then we went on, and then he stopped, and then he went on to his own little segment. Thought that was really dope. But shout out to our guy Chev, and you need to catch him wherever you can. Chev Doris Sanders, if you don't know, Mr.
At
Himothy himself.
He's at Chev90 on Twitter X, and if you go there, you can find all of his stuff. Shout out to him. He'll be on a future pod very soon talking about the AFC South.
But like I said, this is Fourth in Fantasy. I'm Honcho, and this is my guy.
Siriaco, call me Rocco in your streets.
And Rocco, who are we, my man?
We are a fantasy football podcast for Dynasty Sickos by Dynasty Sickos. Come on in.
And as I said when I first started this video, we're going to be breaking down the AFC North. And just to throw out a little wrinkle into it, I will have Rocco giving me one player as we break down the positions, one player to draft and one player to avoid. Rocco, are you ready, my G?
Let go.
Let my fucking go. And when we're looking at the AFC North, we got the Baltimore Ravens, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, we have the Cleveland Browns, and we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then when we're looking at the QB landscape of things, obviously the leading two pack of that group is not Jamar, oh my god, I'm messing up. Lamar Jackson and Burrow himself. Most people are going Lamar Jackson as the de facto of those two. But I feel like Joe Burrow has made a comeback after last year where he was injured in 2023. Then Cleveland Browns, it was just named actually this week that Joe Flacco will be the starting quarterback. How are you feeling about that before we talk about the Steelers, Rocco?
Um, it's cool. It's cool. Joe Flacco, I don't think he's a long term option, but what he will do is feed some of the weapons that they have. So as long as he's starting, I'm feeling good about David and Joku. I'm feeling good about Cedric Tillman, and I'm sure they got somebody else on that team that catches passes. But as long as he's slinging it, I feel good about it. I don't think he's going to be starting all season. There may be another guy waiting in the wings at some point, but Joe Flacco's not the worst quarterback they could have in there because
Not
he'll
worth
at least he'll at least get rid of the rock and distribute to the different weapons that they have on that team.
And I agree with you, Rocco. It could be a lot worse what they could be throwing out there on the field. Joe Flacco, I think, at least gives them a baseline where you can actually evaluate your overall offense and other guys, position players on that offense. I think I am. If you're looking at one of the names that you hit it on the head, Njoku, I think he's one of the guys that benefits the most because we've seen what Joe Flacco does with Njoku. I think this is also good for Judy as somebody who is on the Judy train. I know you're not, but me personally, I'm still on that. And then everybody who's on the Cedric Tillman, I feel like the last few months, everyone's like, oh, let me just hop on this hill of Cedric Tillman being bigger than might some people would go to the length of he's the secret wide receiver one of that offense. But nevertheless, I do like Joe Flacco being named. And maybe things would have been different if Shador Sanders didn't get hurt week 2 and showed out. But nevertheless, I like Joe Flacco. And I think
I
if
think it was always going to be
it
Flacco.
had to be.
They kind of brought him in. I don't think they were just going to give the keys of to the team
Yeah.
to Sanders. I think they're going to make him earn it a little bit. But like I said, Joe Flacco's old. He he could get banged up. He's a big statue back there. So like I said, I don't think he's going to start the whole season.
And then with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we got the one, the only, the person that we despise the most, Aaron Rodgers, and we haven't seen him play in the preseason, obviously because he's Hing as fuck. So we don't think the Steelers ain't gonna be throwing him out there just to get his head knocked the hell out. But
Hmm.
nevertheless, I don't expect great things out of the offense, and just because not just solely because they have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, because we don't fucking like Arthur Smith. So we
That's
don't we
terrible.
don't root for that man's success, right? Even though they have one player that I hold dear to my heart, Mr. Caleb Johnson himself. I hope that you know between him and Warren, things are cool. Um, I've gotten maybe 2 shares of Aaron Rodgers right now, just because of I think those teams I actually even inherited. So there wasn't even teams that I drafted Aaron Rodgers for the most part. Yeah, I know you. I know you're not going to have him on your squad for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. But looking at like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson specifically, and I think I maybe have 1 or 2 shares of him as well, just because of where you have to select them, and that's most of the time in that first like 5 to 6 spot. So
Irresponsible QB drafting.
you know how I'm going every time, baby. So it be what it is. But with Lamar Jackson, and I think where you get the most value from him is when you're in leagues where it's 4 point passing and not 6 point passing, because those rushing or dual threat quarterbacks have more value than just those pocket passers, where that 6 point passing helps give them more value. But with Lamar Jackson, he stays healthy for a guy that runs as much as he does, and extends the play as much as he does. But when you have him on your team, it's like Jalen Hurts. You love him. You like what he does through the game. I think he even has progressed as he's been in the NFL when it comes to a passer. He's always been a great runner, but when it comes to that passing element, I think he's very much involved his game from where he came in the college ranks. But what do you have to say about Lamar Jackson?
Oh, I think Lamar Jackson. I mean, you're splitting hairs between him and Josh Allen. As far as 2025 QB1, I mean, you can't go wrong with either one of them. And I think Lamar Jackson. It really doesn't matter what the scoring is, because I mean, you're talking about a guy that can put up 41 touchdowns in the air, to go along with 900, 800 yards, and a handful of touchdowns on the ground. So, and this is the third year of Todd Monken's offense, and I think that was a godsend for Lamar Jackson, because you
For
could see
Georgia.
it that first year that passing offense took a big leap. And last year, I mean, that dude was basically video game. I mean, he was my MVP. I thought he just had a better season than Josh Allen.
Mhm,
But I guess Josh Allen was due, so he got it. There's some, politicking going on there.
mhm.
But as far as who had a better season, in my eyes, it was Lamar Jackson. And now you're talking about the third season in that offense, and I think they have better weapons than they've had, at any point probably in Lamar Jackson's career, because they brought in a vet with DeAndre Hopkins,
Got hurt.
who is he's hurt.
Yeah, he got we got to get I had to read more news into it, but he got nicked up the other day.
Well, next that, but you do still have third year Zay Flowers, who's a pretty good wide receiver. You got Bateman, who's just whenever he gets the ball in his hand, he's a
Reliable.
yards per reception monster. Um, so you got those two guys. You also got Mark Andrews, who's not coming into this season hurt, who I'm just scooping up everywhere because he's such a great value.
You going there?
Um, and to go along with that, you probably have the best running game in the league, spearheaded by King Henry.
Yeah.
Justice Hill's a great pass catching back, and the most explosive guy on the whole team, Keaton Mitchell. So this team could absolutely push for the league lead in points scored. The only thing that may hold them back is all of the pieces they put on the defense. They're looking at a potentially elite defense as well. So that's the only thing that has me a little bit nervous, that they're just killing teams every week, and they put the foot on the brakes a little bit, in the second half of games. But I mean, on paper, this should be another Super Bowl contending team, going forward.
And with Joe Burrow, I feel like out of the two, with him and Lamar Jackson, he is the most attainable out of the, where it's not going to kill you to try to acquire the player. I feel like Lamar Jackson is somebody who, if you're not drafting him, he's going to cost you a bit. Joe Burrow too, but Lamar Jackson, people hold as like top three quarterbacks in fantasy for QBs, as they should. Whether it's with him, Jaden Daniels, and then Jalen Hurts when it comes to rushing
I,
ability.
I think Burrows is just as expensive. I mean, we're talking about a guy that had almost 5,000 yards last year. He was less than 100 yards away at 43 touchdowns. I mean, he's not a Konami guy, but he also added value with 200 yards on the ground.
And
It's
then
not it's not much, but it is something. So he's definitely a top six startup pick for me.
and then you throw on the fact that he has arguably the top duo, wide receiver duo in the NFL, most definitely highest paid for sure when it comes to that money. So at the end, well, we've spoken on it multiple times in previous episodes where we do believe just because of that, they're going to lead the league in passing attempts. They're going to be one of the most when in most passing categories. I believe the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be that. And then just to throw in the fact that you got Chase Brown, who also I think he does most of his damage through the air as well. He's a good runner too. I think we saw a lot of good things from Todd Brooks, and we'll get into that when we get into the running back group. I don't want to speak too quickly, but no, give me your draft one and avoid one of the AFC North QB group.
Um, it's hard with QB because there's only one per team, so it's not like I could throw a real sleeper in there. But kind of building off what I said before, I'm taking Joe Burrow. Um, I projected Matt Stafford to possibly throw for 5,000 yards in 2025. It looks like it won't happen because his back's broken. But Burrow is looking like a guy that could absolutely throw for 5,000 yards. I mean, that team is looking like possibly the worst defense in the league. I mean, have they even figured out the Trey Hendricks situation? And he was the only guy that was worthy on basically the whole defense. So, they are, you know, depleted of weapons. And unlike the Ravens, who have a great defense and added to it this offseason, they're the Bengals offense is not going to get that same help from their defense. So they're going to be in a lot of shootouts, and they're
I
going to
will.
have to score a lot of points.
Mhm.
So give me Joe Burrow. I think he is in redraft. I think he's I think he's like my QB3. I think he's kind of jumped Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels is going to have another really good year, but there's the sophomore slump and his weapons. I mean, Terry McLaurin, has that situation even been resolved yet? I know he's back. He's back on the team, but he's not happy. And when guys aren't happy at the wide receiver position, I worry about them. I worry about them production wise, and I worry about them getting banged up if they're not 100% in. So that makes me a little nervous. So Burrow, I think, is a guy that I'm going to try to have on most teams because he's just going to have an explosive. He's just going to have an explosive year, and then 6 point TD. He's my QB3. As far as my avoid, that's a little bit easier. I think I'm gonna stay very on brand, and I'm gonna avoid the guy who is forming some kind of unholy offensive duo with him and Arthur Smith. I didn't like Rodgers before, and now he went to the offensive coordinator I disliked the most. So when you put those two together, it is a stay away. Luckily, I don't have any more Rodgers, and I'm not picking up any Rodgers. Not even if there's a fire. Not even if there's a fire in my quarterback room. I'll just go to fucking rebuild if I need to. I'm not
Yeah,
getting any Rodgers. So I'm out of the Rodgers business. He doesn't have much for weapons. He has DK Metcalf, who's one of the most overrated receivers in the league.
I like the conviction.
And I mean, Johnu Smith's going to probably be stuck in some stupid role that's nothing near what he was doing last year with Miami. Pat Fryermuth,
Yeah,
it's
real.
just not looking so great. So it is a completely stay away from Aaron Rodgers, not even if you're on that LSD he's doing.
And yeah, and I'd like to note that you pointed out with redraft with Joe Burrow. I think when it comes to that notion, he is very much in that top three of guys when it comes to redraft. Dynasty, when we think about age, you throw that in there, then you start to think Jaden Daniels starts to be in that top three, top five of guys. And then speaking of Dynasty, looking at the sleeper, or not even sleeper guys, but just lower tier guys, Steelers have Will Howard, just depending on how you feel about him on the long term. I actually do like him as a developmental piece. Just got to see. I like to, and Aaron Rodgers seems like he really wants to try to mentor him, whatever that, and whatever way he can. And if we can really give Aaron Rodgers shit of the human being that he is, but one thing that we can all agree on, he is a Hall of Fame quarterback. So maybe he can pass along some trace of how to go about the game for Will Howard. And then when you're looking at the Cleveland Browns, they have young quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, who I don't think is it, but nevertheless, you are allowed to have your own opinions of him. I believe Shador Sanders will eventually win out. We've all seen it. I think he has the charisma.
Mm.
He has what you're looking for out of the QB position. Now, I want to see him get more game reps. I want to see him get more game time. Hopefully, that oblique is healed up and good to go, so we can see him in his next preseason game. But I like long term what Shador can do for that Cleveland Browns offense. It's just going if this
Right.
2025 might be a little murky, and Joe
Is the
it's gonna be up to Joe Flacco to really lose that to me.
I'm sorry, I'm unclear. Is the buy and avoid dynasty take or is that redraft?
You know, we know Rocco. We talk everything fantasy over here at Fourth and Fantasy. Let's. I don't think it would hurt to give the audience both our views on the redraft, very brief, on a redraft and dynasty. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Still the same for me.
All right, sounds sexy. I like it.
But I
Now,
do like Sanders, but more as a long term
mm,
play. We have no idea if that's going to be something in 2025, and if he is, it's probably in the second half of the season, and you probably already dropped him. So there's no reason to really draft him in redraft unless it's a super deep, super flex type of redraft.
agreed. And if it's dynasty wise, Joe Flacco, if you're really hurting for a quarterback, because that's just like I said, it's going to take Joe Flacco to really stink it up for him to get benched. And when he does stink it up, sure, they might go to Shador Sanders. But I at least say he starts 6 to 7 games this year. I might even go to the length of 10 that Joe Flacco starts. They would have to look really bad while Joe Flacco is
It,
the quarterback.
it really depends on if they're winning games, which they may win some games because that defense is still really good, and they should have a decent running attack
Mhm.
if they can get everybody in the building. Mostly like Judkins with his legal issues. If they can get him signed and he's ready to go, they should have a good running game. But yeah, I can see second half Sanders.
Speaking of Judkins, that's a great transition to move over to our running back group. And when we're looking at that running back group, I feel like it's still as interesting when we're talking about the quarterbacks. Why do I say that? Because with the Baltimore Ravens, we have King Henry with the Bengals, Cincinnati Bengals. We have Chase Brown, Taj.
King Henry.
Yeah, with the Ravens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ravens.
My
We have
bad.
King Henry, and then we have like one of your boys that you will stay on his hill, Keaton Mitchell. You have
Mhm.
Justice Hill, as we've seen it during the receiving game. Cincinnati Bengals, Chase Brown. I know he has a lot of truthers in his corner. I'm not going to back that down. I'm not going to stir y'all up. I don't want to stir the pot tonight. Fuck them. Actually, I am going to stir the pot. But yeah, we saw our boy Taj Brooks do his thing too in this last preseason game Monday. Absolutely love that. The Cleveland Browns is where it gets a little sticky for me because we still have Quinshon Judkins still unsigned, but he has been freed, or he not even free, but he has been cleared of all charges against him. And I believe, from what I've heard through some articles, that the Cleveland Browns are going to wait to see after everything has been moved on before they sign him to his contract. But right now, then you also have Dylan Sampson, who is a little banged up, and I'm trying to believe of the other guy, Ford. There we
Jerome
go,
Ford.
and he's also kind of nicked up. And then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers who have Caleb Johnson. If you don't know, Caleb Johnson was my RB2 pro pre-draft. I still liked him post-draft. I think Steelers was one of the better places for him to go to. I think we just got to see where that overall share of the pie goes and how they break that up. But when you're looking at that running back landscape, Rocco, who do you like? What do you are what makes you happy about this group and for fantasy rise? Whether it's redraft, whether it's dynasty, we can get into the more of the sleeper guys for dynasty purposes. But sure, we're in a redraft startup right now. When when you're looking at these running back group redraft wise, I think obviously King Henry is that top dog. Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, King Henry. I mean, that whole running back room is, by far the class of the division. You got King Henry. You got Justice Hill, who in his own right's a really good pass catching back.
Mm,
And you know, it's gonna take time to get Keaton Mitchell on the field, but I think Keaton Mitchell. I mean, I think he's just a special talent. You're talking about a guy that rips off, 7 to 8 yards, like pretty much every rush, in his average,
mm,
ripping off 20 yard plays like it's nothing. I've been on him for a while. Coming off that knee injury, to see him, so explosive back on the field, it's pretty good. It's a pretty cool thing. Because I mean that knee injury was wicked. I mean, that knee
it was
bent completely
nasty.
the wrong way. Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
was it was
real.
really ugly. Um, I think the Bengals with Chase Brown, if he could stay healthy, he has a huge opportunity in front of him. Depending on how much work Taj Brooks gets, who I really like, because he's basically free. He's been free in basically any dynasty draft. For the first 3 months after the season. After
Only
the draft, I should say.
That
Just
April May block. Yeah.
just basically free. I mean, he wasn't even drafted in a lot of leagues. If you got 3 round rookie drafts, you're picking him up off of waivers. If you got 4 rounds, he might be a mid to late fourth rounder. He was buried in sleepers
Yeah.
rankings. And you're talking about a guy that's going to have a year one opportunity, because the team got rid of Zach Moss, who unfortunately had a real bad neck injury. And Samaje Perine is just not a
He's
guy
cool.
that can really take work away from guys. He's more of a pass down specialist. So pass down specialists would cut into Chase Brown's work. But as far as a guy that can run up the middle, first, second down, get you touchdowns, get you short yardage plays, I think Brooks is going to have a lot of love there.
Agreed.
Steelers, I like Caleb Johnson. I don't trust the
Whoop, whoop,
offense as a
whoop, whoop.
whole. So, that gives me a little bit of pause. But I do have a lot of Caleb Johnson, and hopefully, he can show out this year. And the Browns, sneakily, look out for Jerome Ford. He's a veteran.
Fuck
He's
that man.
there. He's there. He had a really good season last year. And Judkins, I mean, who knows when Judkins is even going to get signed, much less play. I mean, he hasn't been with the team all offseason, so even if he does get signed tomorrow, how long is it going to take him, to get into the playbook? How long is it going to take him to earn a sizable role? The way things are going, it might not even happen in 2025. So, we're looking at Jerome Ford, and we're looking at Sampson as the guys in that offense. And if you're gonna make me pick between a guy that's done it or a guy that's a rookie, uh, and a guy that's cheaper, give me Jerome Ford. But that's kind of how I see the running back landscape for this division.
Listen, Rocco, don't sell these people that hopium, that crack rock, man. Don't do that about the Jerome Ford. You're gonna have the audience thinking he's something to go out and buy. Fuck Jerome Ford over here. You hear me? Now, if we're looking at King Henry, who is the RB1 of this division, I'm buying King Henry, whether it's redraft, whether it's dynasty. And what made me feel even better about Derrick Henry was that he signed a 2-year contract extension, which means the Baltimore Ravens love them some Derrick Henry, no matter if he is over the 30 mark. And it doesn't seem like he is slowing down. He's a cyborg. It's I said this as soon as he signed with the Baltimore Ravens. The perfect team. When we're talking about schematics, the
Mm-hmm.
Ravens was the perfect team for Derrick Henry to go to. And now they're just exploiting that. He almost ran for 2,000 yards. Now, we got to see how he take care of his body. He actually is one of the better athletes in the NFL when it does come to taking care of his body, putting the work in. His workout regimen is absolutely stupid. And so I do have a lot of high hopes. He's somebody who I have quite a bit throughout my leagues. And like I said, I would feel still good about sitting out a late first for Derrick Henry right now if I'm a contending team, because when it comes to production, there's not many guys that are going to give you more than Derrick Henry. Just a handful of guys, and they're going to cost you way more than what Derrick Henry is going to cost you. Would you agree with that, Rocco?
Oh yeah, I mean the guy almost had 2,000 yards in his first year with the Baltimore Ravens. So I mean that guy could absolutely go for 2,000 yards in 2025, and if he gets the touches, the opportunities, and that team's not shutting it down in a lot of midway through the third quarter in a lot of games, I think he could get that 2,000 yards. I mean, he's ripping off chunk plays after chunk plays, and the defense has to honor Lamar Jackson, on those mesh plays. So Lamar Jackson is kind of opening up even better running lanes for King Henry. We know once he gets that motor going, he gets past the line with a head of steam. He's really hard to bring down. Probably the hardest, might be the hardest guy in league history to bring down. 6'3", 250, 260, with a head of steam, running straight for a safety. Fuck out of here. That guy's making a business decision, and he's getting the hell out the way most times, or making a half-hearted arm tackle. So, he's definitely a guy that can go for 2,000 yards. Yeah, 26 first. I give a fuck about that. I'm not worried about a 26 first. If I got King Henry, I'm probably winning money in 2025. So, that 26 first means nothing to me. That 1.12, 1.11, fuck out of here. Give me King Henry all day.
Now, with Trace Brown and the Cincinnati Bengals, would you feel if you're a championship contender, would you feel a little weary or a little worried about Chase Brown? Like, are you fully in on him as RB1? Do you feel like if you were trying to go for a championship, let's say you're in that playoff time, do you believe Chase Brown could bring you home a championship? Is Chase Brown a league winner?
I mean, last year he was until he wasn't. I mean, I think he got banged up in championship week, but up until that point, he was getting people to the finals. So I don't see why he can't. There's no reason why he can't have a similar role that he had last year. But I'm
Regression?
of the belief, I'm of the belief that they brought in Taj Brooks to have a role, and that role probably will keep Chase Brown fresher, so Brown doesn't have to absorb those first and second down, run between the tackles, run into a linebacker over and over again, 20, 25 times a game. you know, uh, Brooks could take some of those carries off his plate and allow Chase Brown to focus on what he's good at, which is explosives and working his way into the passing game, into the Bengals' elite passing game, into the Bengals' 5,000 yards worth of passing game. So, yeah, I like Chase Brown. Um, if I had my choice between Chase Brown and King Henry, I would take King Henry every day of the week.
Would you rather have Chase Brown or Chuba?
I think I would take Chuba. It's a difficult balancing act because Chase Brown is in the known super elite offense, while Chuba is in the somewhat ascending offense. But even if they hit their ceiling, it's not a Cincinnati Bengals ceiling. Um, but I think Chuba has more of that three down skill set, so I'm probably taking Chuba there.
Chase Brown or Marion Hampton?
I think I'm taking Hampton because the Chargers have a similarly explosive offense. He's going to get a bunch of opportunity, and he has a three down skill set, and he has the frame to take that three down skill set on.
Chase Brown or Brees Hall?
You got jokes, man. Give me Brees Hall. No
Hey,
explanation
listen.
needed.
Some people were like, "Fuck Brees Hall, brother. I'm gonna need me some goddamn Chase Brown." So listen,
I
I'm
have
glad
some
you.
short memories in this dynasty landscape.
I'm glad you was on the crack rock, brother. I'm glad if we can keep doing these shows,
2023 league winner.
we can keep doing these shows
I know
together.
it because I got my ass kicked by him in several finals.
All right. Before we move to the next group and do a quick little shout out to Fast Draft, who in the running back group are you drafting, and one that you're avoiding?
Okay. So I was gonna go with Keaton Mitchell, but I feel like I've gone over Keaton Mitchell so many times. Y'all know how I feel about Keaton Mitchell. So I'm gonna pivot to a guy that you didn't like too much. I'm gonna go with Jerome Ford, super duper cheap, and we're talking about a guy that averaged 5.4 yards per carry, and in the last 2 years had 44 and 37 receptions. So he's showing that three down skill set. And there's a talent void there without Judkins coming in. We don't know what we have in Sampson. A lot of people like him, but we don't know. We've seen Jerome Ford be good. He's like a guy that you hold your nose in draft because we didn't like him when he came out. We didn't like him, when he was playing with Nick Chubb. But he is kind of walking into an opportunity. And, I think I'm talking myself into it. That guy has an outside chance to be the 2025 Chuba Hubbard. I any heard anybody with this take. I need to fucking put that shit on wax.
Yeah, go ahead and put
Remind me
that
to
shit
tweet
somewhere.
that shit.
Go ahead and put that shit
2020.
somewhere. I need that shit noted. Yeah, I need that noted. So when we come back and resurface that, we can have a real conversation. Yes, sir. And I'm not going to. I actually
Oh,
am going.
my avoid is Judkins, by the way.
That's your avoid.
So
And
I'm going in the same backfield. Void Judkins,
is that because?
especially
Is that because? And I
we
guess
don't know when he's gonna play.
and redraft wise, I feel like that should be the automatic, right? I think until we just hear more about what's going on legally, or I feel like legally we already heard about, but you just never know what the NFL is going to do. They have their own set of justice, weirdly that is. So we got to see what happens with him. If he's already on my team, fuck it, I'm just going to have to just sit and wait. There are people panic selling. Let's not do that because he is a talent. He's going to play when that is. We don't know, but I'm not selling him for
I see people.
two popcorn bags and a bag of Skittles.
I see people right after the news dropped. they buying him for full price. They getting people getting first plus for like Judkins. Like, why? Why are you buying? That's not a dip. That you just got him with a mid to late first rounder, and you're able to flip that right into a future first rounder. I'm seeing people giving up 27 first for him. Like, no, I'm not buying into that much
27? Oh no.
uncertainty. Even though the charges will drop, the NFL is still investigating because it doesn't matter whether you were guilty or not. NFL is going to do their own investigation, and I mean, depending on what they find, his 25 could be in jeopardy. I mean, he's not even signed yet, so that's a lot of uncertainty to buy into, and right now I'm kind of out.
I ain't mad at that, my G. And if other people felt the same way about Judkins, I wouldn't be mad about that one either. I know there's a lot of people probably kicking themselves though from where they took Quishon Judkins. I know there was a few people that might have took Quishon Judkins over Trevion Henderson. I know you felt sick to your stomach when you saw Trevion Henderson house the first touch he's ever gotten in the NFL. I know you felt that in your stomach. I know for everybody that is out there that shoot, you can even look at some other guys. Shoot, Tyler Warren's looking like a stud. People selected Quinshawn Jenkins ahead of him. Amika Ibuka's looking like a stud. People selected Quinshawn Jenkins in front of him. Things I know it's
Monster.
not looking sexy for y'all. And I'm maybe one of the people that selected Judkins one or two times just because I wanted to share. But nevertheless, this episode is brought to you by Fast Draft, the fastest best ball format out there where you can get cash money in your pocket by drafting. The most simple thing. They're trying to give you money by drafting. How can you do that? Well, you can use our promo codes fourth or fourth. You can download the Fast Draft app. Get yourself into one of the drafts. Use our code. They will double your first deposit up to 50%. I repeat, use either one of our promo codes, and Fast Draft will double your first deposit. Buy or when you download the Fast Draft app, you log in, you sign up, you deposit some coin into your account, and you actually do a draft, man. What I like about Fast Draft, they keep track of your portfolio and all the players that you drafted throughout all the drafts that you've done on platform. And then you can quickly see how fast you are at draft and what value you get. So, nevertheless, let's get to these tight ends, baby. And I don't. I feel like two guys kind of lead this group, if you will. It used to be for me three before Arthur Smith came to town, and kind of before. I won't say he got nuked, but the situation just became weird very quickly. But Baltimore Ravens, we got still the top dog in my opinion, Mark Andrews, and I don't care how you feel about him. Yes, he did drop a pass in the playoffs, and that might hurt you if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan. But me, who's a casual, I wouldn't even say a casual, but a more into it fantasy player, Mark Andrews will forever and always be part of my fantasy teams because I feel like he's Mr. Reliable. And not to go pun with against the drop that he had, but when it comes to production, he gives that. He provides that. And let's throw on top of that where he came into the season just off a car accident. My guy came into the season off a car accident, y'all, and still put up top 10 tight end numbers. I feel like we need to put more flowers on Mark. We need to give one Mark Andrews more flowers. We need to put respect on his name. And to throw another caveat out there, the man has diabetes, has to get insulin shots in game just to do his shit, and still one of the more productive tight ends in the NFL. Stop playing with my G. Then you got the Cincinnati Bengals, who just signed Noah Fant not too long ago, but they also have Mike Gesicki. Cleveland Browns, Devin Njoku, and our boy, me and Rocco's boy, Harold Fannin Jr., who we think will have a role. His role will grow as the season goes off. And then the Steelers, and what I was talking about with the weird scenario. I like me some Pat Fryermuth. And I think his potential will never be tapped because of the overall schematics in Pittsburgh. But also, Arthur Smith is a fucking idiot. So, what I mean by fucking idiot, yeah, they go ahead and trade for a Johnu Smith and fuck up the whole algorithm. Make it make sense, y'all. But nevertheless,
He's a fantasy
right,
terrorist.
fantasy fucking terrorists, man. I don't like. I'm still trying to understand that move to this day. But when you're looking at the tight end landscape, Rocco, would you agree Mark Andrews is still one of the covenant tight ends in the NFL today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I never really had a bunch of Andrews coming into this year because, where he was going. I was just drafting other guys. I thought he was a little high up there as far as price. You know, for the first few years of his career, but his price has come down and he's lost a lot of value over one drop pass. That drop pass does not change his role with the team. It's
Nope.
not. There were rumors that he would get traded, but it didn't happen. He's still there. He's Lamar Jackson's favorite target. Sorry, Zay Flowers. I would like you to, you know, score a few more fantasy points for my team, but it's still gonna be Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews had 11 touchdowns last year. 11 touchdowns, and we're talking about a guy that had an injury coming into the season, and then right before the season, he, has a car accident and lands on his head. So it was surprising that he wasn't even more seriously injured, and it took him a while for him to get started. But he scored 11 times last year, you know, um, not at full strength. So he absolutely still has, one of those monster seasons in his range of outcomes. So yeah, him and David and Joku for me are the class of the division
And
at tight
with
end.
Mark Andrews redraft wise, I feel like there's no reason for you not selecting Mark Andrews. Dynasty, okay. And even then, I still feel like you're kind of being a little picky with that because
Hey, he's
right,
cheap. He's cheap.
and
You could probably get him for a second and a little plus on top of it. I've got him as like throw-ins for
And we talk
deals.
about all the time how hard tight end production is to come by, especially if it's not a tight end premium league. You're basically begging to have a tight end give you some type of production each week and week out. And where we were talking about Derrick Henry being in an offense that's damn near tailor made for him, Mark Andrews is in the same situation. When we were talking about options, it's Derrick Henry and it's Mark Andrews. And then we have the wide receivers that start to trickle in behind that. That's in that pecking order, right? So with Mark Andrews, I like him. In Dynasty, I like him. In Redraft, I like him. He's Lamar Jackson's safety blanket. Cincinnati Bengals, I think, just made it more interesting getting Noah Fant because when they just had Mike Gesicki, I was like, all right, that's going to be their guy coming in. They did have the he hurt his knee. His name is slipping my. Thank
Eric
you.
All.
Yes,
I have Eric All on like all of my IRs, man. He was actually getting playing time, and I think by the end of the season he would have been the tight end one for that team. Just because he's more of an all around type of tight end than Gasecki is. Gasecki's more of a receiver at tight end, but he was kind of he was putting on some good film in 2024. He blew his knee out, but look for him in 2026. I like him as a sleeper, and I'm trying to hold him on taxi squads slash injured reserve.
and then you got Isaiah Likely who messed his. He had a lower leg injury, and he still has a few more weeks while until he comes back. And before he could miss the first week of the season. I think and I'm not sure who is the third string. I believe it's Kohler for the Ravens. Nevertheless,
It don't
that
matter.
threw Mark Andrews right into the for me top five group of where they're gonna lean on him. And then the Cleveland Browns, we already talked about it with Joe Flacco. Best case scenario. where he can still give you that top 10 production. Everything will come to, for me, how I feel about. I've never been someone who was like, all right, let me go get me some Njoku just because I've liked other guys. And then I also will throw into, I really liked Harold Fenton Jr. in the draft. So I think they will eventually, as he gets more comfortable being in the NFL, I think he'll get more tossed his way. Like they're going to use a lot of 12 personnel because I think they want to use or get the ball in his hands in many different ways. 2025, I think they're going to end up figuring that out. Long term wise, I'm taking Harold Fenton Jr. over David Njoku. David Njoku might become expendable, maybe depending on how that contract ends up working out. But I like me some Harold Fenton Jr. You know, if when we were looking at those rookie tight ends, he might have been my most selected out of those, out of those guys between him and Mason Taylor. So, and then with Pat Fryermuth, Johnu Smith, I'm almost completely out on Johnu Smith. I'm not saying he might, and he could prove me wrong. He could be somebody who still shows out to be like he gives you a solid a year. I'm not saying it's crazy fantasy purposes, but him and both Pat Fryermuth could potentially have a serviceable year. Who does get the touchdowns? I do think of a touchdown regression for either one of them because of the piece of the pie does get decreased. I'm not really happy about the passing offense and how that's going to go. And then I think there are going to be a running base team. So we got to see how the overall target share is. I don't think there's enough for Pat Firemouth to give you high fantasy production. And Johnu Smith either. The people who, and I know there's some people that had, if you had Johnu Smith and Pat Firemouth before Johnu Smith got traded to, ooh, I know you're pissed about the whole fantasy guy, right? You're horrible, and not really much you could. I don't think there's much people buying Johnny Smith right now. The price, your window was, God, I couldn't remember when he was balling during the season. It's keep it a buck. But who would have known that the Dolphins were going to trade him after having a career year? Miami Dolphins for you. But how do you feel about that overall tight end room for the Steelers? I know you don't like Aaron Rodgers. You don't like Arthur Smith. Well, we don't like Arthur Smith. But I do know that you're not a Pat Fryermuth hater. You just don't like the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Janu's better than him. Um, the one out that we have with Janu, and it's maybe galaxy brain in it. Um, According to Andrew Cooper, he's one of the best tight end um, evaluators out there. His golden rule with selecting tight ends is if you want to be an elite tight end, you have to be the second option on your team. Um, so there is an avenue where Jonnu Smith can be the second option on the Steelers, but if it's the second option on a shit offense, then it's probably not going to happen. But it doesn't really take a whole lot to be good at tight end. Um, so I'm basically holding my Janu that I have just because I can't get anything for it. So it's more of a what if type of thing. What if, Aaron Rodgers has one decent season left in him? What if DK Metcalf ain't all that and he got his money and he's out there chilling? So Jonnu Smith could be in line for some targets, but he's just as likely to be playing fullback for the fucking Steelers just because of what we said about, their offensive coordinator, who I won't even give the pleasure of naming him at this point. So I think, Fryermuth's just the guy there. Um, Janu's, more athletic than Fryermuth. So I think he has, I don't know, maybe a 15% shot of actually, providing some value. and I think he has an outside shot of being a tight end one. But those top five tight end seasons that we saw, or season that we saw from Janu, we're not getting anything fucking even resembling that from Pittsburgh.
Now let me get your draft one and avoid one for the tight end group in the AFC North.
Okay, in redraft, I'm taking Mandrews. I'm probably taking him in Dynasty as well, because I think he can be a league winner for you in 2025. I mean, he's the first option. He's not the second option for a really good offense. He's the first option in the passing attack. Special mention for Harold Fannin Jr. I think he's just awesome, and um, hopefully by the end of the season, he's getting a lot of run. And like you said, there may be some 12 personnel because, I think the more playing time he gets, the more they see of him, the more it's going to be hard to take him off the field. So, yeah, that's my draft type of guys. Am I avoid? I'm going to say Pat Fryermuth. At best, he's probably the third option on that team, and I just don't have a lot of hope for that team. So he's a straight avoid. I will have no shares of Pat Fryermuth, and I'm not acquiring any shares
And,
unless he gets traded. His value is tanked.
and we got to the fun part of the episode, the good part. The wide receivers. You know how I love feeling about my guys. I feel about talking about these motherfuckers. The receivers probably my favorite group to talk about out of all the positions of all fantasy because they
Mm.
hold the most value. I am a hero wide receiver player in fantasy every single time. I'm unapologetic about it. I know some people are very hero running back. That's the piece of the pie. That's how you win championships. I know a lot of people who win off a hero wide receiver ball too. So let's not toss that out to the wind. Well, but let's talk about the receivers. With the Baltimore Ravens, we have Zay Flowers, who I was buying in 2024. Not no more. Not no more. He's actually on my avoid in 2025. If I'm keeping the buck,
Secondary breakout.
I'm not fucking with him at this moment. But they also got Rashad Bateman, and then you also can throw out DeAndre Hopkins. Then with the Cincinnati Bengals, you got Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, you got I don't even know how to say his last name, Charlie Jones, Jermaine Burton, and a few other guys in that room. Then you Cleveland Browns, Jerry Judy, Cedric Tillman, Deontay Johnson. They just signed Isaiah Bond. Just however you feel about him, that Jamari Thrash, guys like that. Pittsburgh Steelers have basically nobody. DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin. They have Roman Wilson. They just released Rock Taylor, who I heard good reports about that he was showing. So it's kind of crazy.
So they weren't too rocked up for
Wasn't too
Taylor.
rocked up about Taylor, my G knee slapper. But in the wide receiver groups, when I'm kind of looking at them, obviously the top dogs in this division, the Bengals, right? They put the money where their mouth is. They put their money where their bread is. Bengals, Jamar Chase, who was 2024 wide receiver one, and T. Higgins, who some would argue is the best wide receiver two in the NFL, and how what that overall offense is going to be in 2025. I feel like you're more than likely buying that overall offense or just wide receiver group. Jamar Chase is, one of the harder buys to get. Obviously, more than three plus first to acquire. T Higgins is damn near a first, and he might be a first and a third at this point. If
T
yeah,
Higgins, offer a first for him and see you get
yeah,
left
get
out of
easy
the
on
out of the
that. They say
conversation.
Rocket, you gonna get your ass laughed up out the DMs.
Yeah, yeah. People is like to the moon for Higgins. I'm a little. I'm not quite as high on him. But a lot of people won a lot of money with T Higgins' week championship week performance. So I think that lifted him up even higher into the stratosphere. But we still have to remember he's the number two behind a Triple Crown
Do you
winner.
think Jamar Chase is repeats as wide receiver one in 2025?
No, I think CeeDee Lamb's going to do
We're
that this
talking.
year. And there's there's also um, opportunity for Jets to get right back in there. Justin Jefferson. I think it's just hard to put back to back Triple Crown season, and he doesn't have to win the Triple Crown to be the number one wide receiver. I mean, he could do it. I mean, Joe Burrow is going to throw for 5,000 yards, so I think I'm kind of talking myself back into it, but um, I think that Dak Prescott's equally going to throw for damn near 5,000 yards. Probably not 5,000 yards, but damn near close between 4,500 and 4,800 yards. So um, I just think that we're looking at a big bounce back season for CeeDee Lamb. I'm lockstep with you on that. Um, but I mean, whether he does it or not, he's still going to be a top three wide receiver, no doubt
And
about
then
it.
with the Baltimore Ravens, the name that you brought up, Zay Flowers, and who I just said who I'm no longer buying. Are you still believing, or are you still believing that he has a breakout to go along? Can he thrive in this offense where they are so run heavy?
I think the problem is, like we said, not only the run heavy nature of the team, but also the fact that they're going to be up ahead in a lot of games. I feel like, this is kind of a cliche, but I think he's better in best ball because I think there's absolutely going to be some blow up weeks where he's, 100 yards and a touchdown on 5 to 8 catches, and he's killing it for you that week. But there's also going to be weeks where Lamar Jackson's running for 100 yards, Derrick Henry's running for 200, and they barely have to pass the rock, and he might be getting you 3 points in those week in PPR. So I guess my advice in lineup leagues is I would not feel comfortable with him as my wide receiver two. I damn sure not comfortable with him as my wide receiver one. If he's your wide receiver one, you're rebuilding. But I would feel better with him as a wide receiver three or a flex option, where if he duds out, he's not going to kill you because you got other guys scoring points. But when he does have that blow up week, your team is damn near unbeatable because you're getting your points from your studs, your guys you can count on, your foundational pieces, and you're getting 25 to 30 from him, and you're basically unbeatable. So that's kind of how I see Zay Flowers. Does he have a chance to improve? I mean, his third year wide receiver. That's a great year to break out as a third year wide receiver, and he's already, you know, pushed for 1,000 yards in each year, and he's had great moments. I mean, he's a guy that's hard to bring back down in the open field. With him, it's more just getting the opportunities because if he gets the opportunities, I think he could absolutely be a 1,000 yard, 1,200 yard receiver. It's just can he get the opportunities because this Ravens offense is just loaded. So if if they have to play full games, I think they very well. I think Lamar Jackson has even another elevation that he can reach because you've seen the team, getting better in each year that Todd Monken's been running the offense. So I mean, who's to say that Lamar Jackson can't throw for 4,500 yards? Maybe they scale back his
Hmm.
running and let him pass more. I mean, they've added weapons to the passing game, so why can't he throw for 4,500 yards and do it efficiently? I think that's definitely in the realm of possibilities
Damn,
for him.
if you're saying Zay Flowers is more of a wide receiver three or a flex, that means Rashad Bateman's a flex to damn near on your bench for the most part. He should only be thrown into your lineup if you really need him. A role player, if you will, on your fantasy team, right?
Yeah, he's a bye week type of guy unless there's an injury, or if you know I'm in deep leagues. I'm in leagues where you have three wide receivers and four flex. He can absolutely, play for me as my last flex because he's another guy when he pops, he'll provide a nice boost for your team. It's not going to happen every week. It might only happen 5 times in 17 games, but when it does, it'll pop. So, I think he's definitely a good depth piece. And guys get injured, so people get injured. You have to plug him in. He's absolutely a guy that I wouldn't feel terrible about putting in. He's going to done out or he's going to have a pretty good game.
And then DK Metcalf for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you see him having wide receiver one type production in 2025? Or you think it's not going to be smooth sailing? You don't think it's going to be nice and sexy with DK Metcalf? Do you think he's going to be another crash out season for him coming with Aaron Rodgers probably not having another good year? If Garrett Wilson was ready to basically say, trade me if y'all bring him back.
Um, yeah. DK's funny because like that dude may be like not even like he's maybe one of the closest things we've seen to like a Calvin Johnson. Like, I mean, like he could be like if there was a guy that would be like the model for the Terminator, he would be it. I mean, the dude's huge. I mean, he runs a sub 4.4 in the
Yep.
40. I mean, he weighs like 230 pounds. Sculpted. Um, and what's funny is like he's he's like a Chad Ochocinco. He's like you know built like he lives at the gym, but he eats candy
All day.
all day every day, which is kind of funny. Some people just have the genetics, but the frustrating thing about him is it's like he peaked out in his second year in the league and he's just gotten progressively worse. I want to see guys with that upward trajectory that keeps going up. Like, if there's an injury, that's an extenuating circumstance. But you know, for guys that stay healthy and their projections going up the hill and then it drops off and then it drops off a little more and it drops off a little more, that's just telling me that you're not getting better at your craft, that you don't really take this game we love seriously. And that concerns me with DK. That's why I've kind of jumped off the DK bandwagon. But 2025, he has opportunity because he's by far the number one target in the passing game. If they make anything happen, if they got Jonnu Smith playing at fucking fullback, you know, he's good. I mean, he's another guy like Garrett Wilson and Drake London who could absolutely push for the league in targets. The only thing holding them back is a slow offense, but we don't project the Jets to have a super fast offense either. So he may get there on volume alone, but he's a guy in Dynasty. If he gets there, I would be looking to offload because I just don't trust his workout acumen, his love of the game. So unless he's just out there just killing it, and pushing for 1,500 yards, and you could see that it maybe was Seattle that had him dreary, being in a place that rains all the time, and he feels like he's got a new lease on life. He got paid, and he dedicates himself to his craft. Um, then I'll hold, but I'm likely gonna hope that he gets a lot of targets, gets there in volume, and then I'm gonna fucking ship his ass right out of there.
Yeah, if you're a DK Metcalf owner, you can only hope that he gets peppered with targets so that you're able to flip him in season. I'm not buying DK Metcalf right now. He basically got paid wide receiver one type money, and I don't believe he's a wide receiver one. In his head, he thinks he's a wide receiver one, but I don't think he's built of that cloth. I don't think he's that guy, right? So that's how I feel about DK Metcalf. And then, however you feel about the guys behind him in that offense, I don't really care much. Roman Wilson, he is what he is. Calvin Austin, he is what he is. is, and then once again Arthur Smith. I think that name says it all for how high that offense could be. Our receiver wise, I'm not buying anybody on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cleveland Browns, I love me some Jerry Judy. You know how I feel about Jerry Judy. I do feel like with Joe Flacco, that is going to maximize his 2025 production. And I do feel like Jerry Judy is one of the underrated wide receiver ones to go get. I have him as my wide receiver three in many places, but I feel like he could give me wide receiver two type weeks or even wide receiver one spikes if everything goes well. Everything won't go well for the Cleveland Browns because it's the fucking Cleveland Browns. But I could try to have happy thoughts. But I do think with Jerry Judy, he is one of the more underrated buys. He's like, I would throw him in the same category as people sleeping on Calvin Ridley this year. I think Calvin Ridley will have a better year than more people think. And that's how I feel about Jerry Judy. But give me your draft one and avoid one for the wide receiver group.
All right. Avoid, that's easy for me. I'm avoiding the shit out of Jerry Judy. Don't I want zero shares of Jerry Judy. The only time he's really, been fully relevant was with Jameis Winston throwing YOLO balls the whole. So get that out of there. Um, and my buy, um, I was just thinking about something. I think I feel about Judy like I feel about Steve Smith feels about him. That's how I feel about him.
Okay.
Maybe he could prove me wrong. Tillman, wide receiver one. Go buy you some Tillman, and that's my and that's the guy. That's the guy I'm drafting. Out of these teams in the division.
I like it, man. And we only got a handful more of these videos, man, for this division breakdown series we've been doing these last couple of weeks. We got one more show with our boy Chef breaking down the division. We have another show with our boy Nedberg. I'm over here messing up. Nerd Boy.
Ned
But it's
Burger.
been a long day. It's 11 o'clock where I'm at. We've been ripping and running. But our boy
Hell
our
yeah.
guy Ned Boy, we have an episode to do with him. And then we got the season coming up, man. So and then we
Hell
have a
yeah.
treat, not even a treat, but adding more to the show, changing some things around. Super excited to what the season has in store for us. As always, you need to remember this episode is brought to you by Fast Draft, the fastest best ball platform out there where they're trying to put money in your pocket. And they'll even double that first deposit if you use either one of our promo codes, fourth or fourth. They will double that first deposit up to $50. And that's by downloading the app, adding money to your account, jumping yourself into a draft and getting started. But as always, this has been Fourth and Fantasy. It's actually been a great series. I've been liking going through this each division, seeing which guys that we are more leaning towards, who we're avoiding. I think in the grand scheme of things, and when you're looking at the schedule where teams do play these guys twice a year of your division, you can see how a few of these games are going to turn out. So, nevertheless, Rocco, do you have anything for the viewers before we head out of here?
We are a fantasy football podcast for Dynasty Sickos by Dynasty Sickos, but everybody's welcome.
And follow us, subscribe, share, like, join our free Discord. We're always chatting in there. We've been going crazy all day about the Anthony Richardson news and him being named the starting Colts quarterback. Jump in there. We'd love to hear what you have to think about football. We like to talk shit as well in there. And then you can find us on Twitter X. You can find us on Blue Sky. You can find us on TikTok. We're almost at 300. We just crossed the 1,400 mark on YouTube. And then we're continuing to grow on Twitter. So once again, appreciate everybody that continues to tap in with Fourth and Fantasy, me and Rocco. Appreciate all our guys behind the scenes that tapping with us on the Fourth and Fantasy team. Our guy Max. Shout out to our boy Jay who just started his Substack not too long ago, and he's out there putting out articles of who he loves in fantasy. And I feel like I'm not forgetting anybody at this moment, but wherever you view us, wherever you see us, TV, phone, wherever time it is, appreciate you. We're your fantasy playbook to more championship wins, and it's almost that time to add some more championships to our belt, baby.
Hell
Till next
yeah.
time, this is Fourth and Fantasy. I'm Honcho, and this is my guy.
Siriaco, call me Rocco.
Until next time, Fourth and Fantasy.